Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Utility Sports. In today's video, we're going to be talking about what we saw in the Sugar Bowl between Justin Fields, quarterback for Ohio State, QB for Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, and kind of what it could mean for their draft status. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of mock drafts on the channel. That might be how you found us. And today, we're going to be talking about those quarterbacks, the implications of their performances last night, and kind of what it could mean for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, or other teams interested in a quarterback in the NFL draft here. And Austin, I'm going to open it up to you. Fields yesterday had a 22 of 28 day, 385 yards with 6 passing touchdowns, did have 1 interception though. Kind of break down what you saw from him, his performance. Obviously, some people have been concerned about him moving forward, but he had a really good performance in my estimation. What do you kind of think on his game?
Yeah, so for Justin Fields, that was arguably the best game of his entire career, going up against a big-time school in Clemson. A lot of times the criticism has been on Justin Fields as he crumbles against actual competition. We saw this year against Northwestern was his worst game of the season, just brutal throwing the football. Trey Sermon actually carried them to that Big Ten title. He was phenomenal in that game. Also, we look back to the Indiana game, which we refer to a lot. He didn't have that bad of a game, actually, looking back on it again, but overall, his knock has been he doesn't shine in those big games against bigger time opponents, especially ranked opponents. He can beat up on the smaller schools or the schools that are just not as good. But when it comes to almost even competition, most of the time it's still lesser competition than Ohio State, but there's been a lot of criticisms. However, he kind of silenced the haters this week, obviously, by throwing for 6 touchdowns in a really, really gritty performance, which was so impressive to me. Takes a crown of the helmet to the rib area midsection. Looks like he was possibly going to be out of the game. I thought a lot of people were thinking that as well, that he might come out of the game and they were forced to go to the backup, but he was gritty. He fought through it. I'm not really sure what the injury will be. I don't know if it's going to be bruised ribs, cracked ribs. I guess we'll see. But Justin Fields was just phenomenal. Had the ability to throw the ball deep. He had the ability to put touch on his passes. Just really impressive performance overall. Also, we saw his dynamic play with his legs early before he had really got hurt. Obviously was killing Clemson just running the ball himself. Pretty good athlete as a whole. And I want to kind of just talk about Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence, the storyline. Through high school, it's always been those two guys in this class, right? Obviously, 1-2 players in the country. Trevor Lawrence was always seen as the better prospect. Justin Fields was always 2. As we progress through the college career, obviously Trevor Lawrence gets a title. So like his stock has always been higher ever since high school when they came out. They've always been 1-2 though. That's the really impressive thing about it. Justin Fields did not let that affect him mentally. He took control of this game. Clemson's defense was brutal. I cannot state enough how bad their defense was. I really thought that they had a chance. I really thought they were going to win this game. I think a lot of people felt that Clemson was very, very strong going into this football game. And let's not get it twisted with Trevor Lawrence, though. He didn't have a bad game. Justin Fields just was so good that it overshadowed Trevor Lawrence as, for his game individually. People are acting like, Trevor Lawrence threw 5 interceptions in the game. It was just that Justin Fields was so good during the course of the game that he really overshadowed Lawrence for the first time in his career. So a lot of props to Justin Fields. Let's not panic, though, as we move through the draft process and think that this one game is going to be a determining factor on who the Jacksonville Jaguars select with their selection.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of overreactions in my estimation, really looking at the 1-2 combination here of Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. A lot of people are even saying that Justin Fields could possibly go number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point. However, we just really don't find that likely. I don't find that likely. Austin, looking at Fields and his dynamic play, what he gives you in this recent performance, do you think that there's any shot he goes first overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars?
There's one pathway where I see he could go number 1. It's not the most likely pathway, but I think every single GM and head coach in the league, whoever they decide to bring in, will want Trevor Lawrence regardless of what they saw in this game. Because we've seen consistent play out of Trevor Lawrence his entire career. Justin Fields has been up, down, up, down. Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? A little bit of inconsistent play. However, I think that has been a little overstated his inconsistent play just a little bit. But I think the pathway that Justin Fields is the number one quarterback in the class is if whoever the GM is brings in Urban Meyer, who obviously lured Justin Fields from Georgia. I think that could be the pathway. That's a little scary as a Jags fan. I don't want that to happen, but that could be the ultimate pathway, getting his guy that he ultimately lured, and then Ryan Day, really helped develop him at Ohio State since he took over the program. I see that pathway happening, possibly. Very unlikely, but there's a possibility.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to monitor here for the Jaguars. They've been linked to both Dabo Swinney, the Clemson head coach, obviously coach of Trevor Lawrence the past few years, and also, like you had mentioned, Urban Meyer, who had brought in Justin Fields, like you mentioned. It's going to be an interesting situation going forward, but I do think that Trevor Lawrence will still be the number one pick. So we would mock him here, number one, in a mock draft. Looking at number two, though, this is where things get a little more dicey with this recent performance from Justin Fields. A lot of people weren't sold on him. A lot of people thought maybe the Jets are going to take a tackle here in Sewell, maybe move down for the Bengals to go get Sewell, something like that. Now with Fields' recent performance, I think it's very likely that the Jets GM Joe Douglas looks at Justin Fields as a sure upgrade over Sam Darnold. I also think it's likely that other teams could be looking at Justin Fields as a franchise guy and really wanting to jockey up to that number two pick in the draft with the New York Jets. What do you kind of see when it comes down to that? What teams could you be watching to move up? Obviously, we've seen Carolina, maybe Washington if they miss out. Those are kind of two that jump out to me. Is there any other teams for you? Or do you think the Jets will stay and take Fields?
Yeah, for me, I think that the Jets are going to try to leverage a trade. I think that they believe enough in Darnold to where they want to get assets around him. Obviously, taking a Sewell here, if there's no trade down options, is a really good decision. Obviously, Justin Fields could be the guy now. It really depends. But looking at it as a whole, I think they will leverage a trade down, whether it be with Atlanta, whether it be with Carolina, possibly Denver, and see how they feel about Drew Lock. A couple of other teams, towards the back end of the mid to back end of the first round could be interested. Obviously, San Francisco. We've seen jumps like that where teams will move from 15-1. We saw it in the Jared Goff trade where Tennessee moved back with St. Louis, and obviously we're able to leverage a ton of draft picks. I don't know if that is going to be the same case moving up to the number two spot. I'm not exactly sure, and that's something that we're going to find out later on here. There's a couple of other teams, like you mentioned, Washington being a possibility. I think that the Jets will leverage a trade down pretty much no matter what.
Yeah, as a Jets fan myself, that's kind of what I'm hoping. The situation is I hope Fields' recent play really, drives up his stock for a trade situation. I think the Jets I picked to really need to add more talent. And I like Sewell as a selection, but I think moving down would be a no-brainer if there's a ransom of picks on the line. I'm hoping Joe Douglas makes the right decision there. It's just going to be interesting, though. Justin Fields definitely did close the race a little bit. Before that game, before the Sugar Bowl, there was no question in anyone's mind that Trevor Lawrence would be the first overall pick. Now we see some people starting to doubt that a little bit. I think that's an overreaction, but it will be an interesting thing to monitor. Maybe if Fields has an excellent pro day, maybe if Trevor Lawrence kind of struggles there, it could even tighten the race a little bit more. It'll be something to monitor. If you guys haven't already, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more of our mock drafts in the future. They come out every Monday, and then usually we have a second round mock that comes out later in the week as well. And also for some of our other videos, we cover some college football, some actual normal NFL football, just game reviews, live streams, stuff like that. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Awesome. Thank you for being on today, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.